Hi, this is Dave Tree of All the Cool Stuff in Fordingbridge, and today we're going to be taking you back in time, roughly about 4 years ago, to watch one of 4 toy reviews that we did, but for one reason or another, we never actually got round to editing and putting it out there. So some of the information that might be contained in there isn't necessarily relevant where we say it's new in stocks, don't rush out and go crazy, but the reviews are quite good to watch nonetheless, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, the figures were amazing. These are all Star Wars reviews and they were quite excellent figures for the time, and they've not been surpassed in 4 years since. And secondly, within some of the reviews, you actually get to see some pretty cool things and insights that you don't normally get to see in other toy reviews. So, whilst it's a bit different from the stuff that we're now doing currently, sit back and enjoy these. And like I said, there's 1 of 4, so check them all out. Hello, it's Dave, but not the Dave you normally see, it's the other Dave. And instead of Transformers, I'm going to be covering some of the Star Wars things. So, having a look at all the new releases and bits and pieces like that are going on. And one of the first ones we're going to give a stab at, so do forgive me if this is not as good as like some of Dave's ones, but as this is my first review, but we're going to give this guy a go, which is Luke Skywalker in his Bespin gear from the new vintage collection line that coincided with the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. Now, for people who are not so familiar with this figure, or perhaps even more than a toy line, I thought rather than just go on about, this is what we've got and things like that, it would be very, very quick, short review. But this is a character that I personally really, really love. It's my favourite version of Luke. So to give a good bit of background information on this guy, I thought we could go through what's all happened before. Now, in the beginning, there was this chap. This is the first version of Luke Skywalker in his Bespin gear from around about 1980, and it was a brilliant figure. It was one of my favourite figures as a kid for 2 reasons. Number one, it was like, he looked like he was ready for action. He was going places. He was ready to do stuff. Number 2, it's the first time Luke came with a gun, because before then it was just his lightsaber. And that brings it on to the third and most important point at this very juncture in this action figure's history, is he had a removable lightsaber, and he was awesome. He was fantastic. Like I said, one of my favourite figures as a kid, and that actually inspired me to go on and look at other bits and pieces. So you can see there, for example, that's one of the first edition cards on the Palatoy line, and they quickly then changed it from the walking photograph to a more sort of looky round the corner jobby, which was maybe a bit more picture friendly. But he also existed in other forms as well. That's like one of them sort of cross-European ones, and also in other sort of slightly more weirder packaging variations. This is a Japanese one where they were quite short on shelf space, so they literally packed them in little tiny generic boxes like that. But that was what we had. That was like the benchmark for things. Fast forward about 15 years, maybe a bit longer than that, when Kenner had been acquired by Hasbro, and you had the Power of the Force 2 line. This was the first incarnation of Luke Skywalker again in his Bespin gear. Now, not so amazing by today's standards, but back then it was a cool figure to have. It was really, really cool. It wasn't like over the top in terms of the beefiness. It had its first, now, for any kids at home, squeamish or anything otherwise, don't worry, you can put that back on. But that was a really cool feature at the time. And he had a big shooty bang bang thing, which he's packing heat. Who needs a lightsaber when you got a gun like that? But he was quite cool. He was nice. But You know, he was around for a good sort of 5 years, until you had this guy, around about 2002. Now, he wasn't actually the first incarnation of this. It was actually this guy, which soon then became this guy. Now, this was a figure that was canned, and was due to come out around about sort of 2001 as part of a CD-ROM version. There was going to be a CD-ROM Luke and a CD-ROM Vader, and this was an update of Luke in his Bespin gear. It was much more sort of realistic. I don't know if we get him out of the way. Oh, there we go. You can see he's got blood spattered face. He's been really slapped about, and you can see he's got holes in his knees and things like that. You know, much more worn and beaten down compared to like his sort of earlier incarnation. But this figure was canned. It never saw the light of day, unfortunately. But they did, in a couple of years later, take some elements of this figure and produce this one for the sort of 2002 Saga version, but with the inclusion of jointed knees, which was a huge improvement, and a much more sort of detailed paint job, even though certain features like the face still remained, and jointed elbows and things like that. Now this time he had a magnet hand, which was quite cool, but he had all of these really stunning features. Again, back in the day, every time they've done this figure up to this point, you know, it's always been amazing. And the gun was in a holster this time, you know, it wasn't like loose. He had kind of a crazy action figure by the means of a switch on the back, but it was great. He even had like a sucker dart weather vane, so you could actually stick him to the window and have him hanging upside down after he's been beaten up by his father and that. But it was a really nice, cool figure. Now, they liked it so much that they actually reissued it again around about sort of 2004, 2005 or so. Exactly the same figure, but just a different paint job. So it was just like an updated version for the original trilogy collection line that they had back then. Again, still like the same features: magnetic hand, gun, lightsaber, and the spitty round. Then disaster kind of struck. Someone somewhere in the Hasbro offices thought, let's try and sort of capitalise in on holiday seasons and things like that. You know, we've done a couple of Christmas edition figures and things like that. I know, let's do a Father's Day one, and we can have a Father's Day card celebrating Vader revealing for the first time that he's Luke's father, and cutting his hand off, and we'll do it as a 2-pack. You know, that's amazing. No, it wasn't. It was such a crap idea. It was unbelievable. And the result of that, of a poorly executed thing, was a figure that was jumbled together. It didn't even have the right head. This is a head sculpt from like the Jedi figure, so it kind of looked weird. Came packaged with a Vader and a Father's Day greetings card, you know. But bearing in mind the things that have been going on, you know, with that particular event, it was just really bizarre thing to have done, and someone was probably paid a hideous amount of money for it. And the most, you know, shocking fact out of all of this is that it's actually on some exec's CV somewhere as a major achievement. But let's forget about him. They did do another figure shortly after then to try and sort of make up for that fact. And again, this is actually the first time it was actually done on a vintage style backing card. Again, this is probably around about sort of 2007, 2008 or so. A much, much better version of Luke Bespin, and again, you know, sort of articulated sort of waistline, ball joint knees, ball joint ankles, and everything like that. Really, really, really cool. Painfully small gun, but probably up to this point the most realistically sized thing. But the only thing that really, really let this down was the hair. This is the first action figure of Nikki Clark. Now, anybody who doesn't know who Nikki Clark is, and it's pretty shocking that I'm actually coming out with this, that I know who he is, but he's kind of like one of these celebrity sort of hairstylists. You know, and he's just got crazy, crazy big bouffant hair, and so's this action figure. So, great action figure to a degree, just falls short on a few things. So, and that was only a couple of years ago, but we fast forward now to this new version. So, let's see if I can sort of pull that back a little bit. So, this is part of the new vintage collection, which was launched around August time, and much like what has gone before, these are retro styled cards. Put them next to the original there, you can see it is based very closely, with the exception of some of the new toy legislation and things like that. New updated versions of the figures, but done in a retro style packaging. Now, these are, you know, probably more aimed to fans of the original toys rather than the current line of kids, who are probably much more into things like the Clone Wars cartoons. This one's quite cool. You wouldn't have had this back in time. Well, no, but like Rocket Firing Boba Fett, which is now a mail away promotion in the States, which is kind of weird because it is a vintage style figure based on a vintage style card, but with like new action figures. But quite bizarre. But you know, it's a nice little idea. But if we look at the action figure itself, we'll just literally quickly go through what it can and can't do. Okay, I mean, like I said, it is an update from this guy, which is only a couple of years before, and it is a new sculpt. It's not based on same body parts like we've seen on some of the previous action figures where they've cobbled bits together. It does look like it's, you know, more or less a whole brand new sculpt. So if we go through, and it's each individual component part, he does kind of look like he has childbearing hips. He's kind of big hippie, short on body, and kind of almost hunched up on his shoulders, which is no bad thing. I mean, you look at something like the sort of publicity stills, that's kind of like what Luke looks like. But he has ball jointed ankles, knees. Now this is quite cool for figures at the moment. Well, certainly a first for this one. He's got ball jointed hips, swivel race and ball jointed waist, ball jointed arms, elbows, swivel wrists, and kind of a ball jointed head. But the problem is, as with a lot of the figures of recent, is Adam's apple gets in the way of him actually being able to like look up or down, so he's really only kind of like sort of swivelly and side to side. But a couple of cool inclusions. The gun's actually got bigger again from the last figure, but goes in the holster. For the first time, you got the lightsaber as a hilt that you can add there, so it's like clipped on as he's like walking through Cloud City. And then you got the actual lightsaber as well, which also bizarrely has the peg to go in, but not the removable blade. So he could be walking along cutting the grass, or his toes, or something like that. I think that's just like a minor oversight. It's no real biggie, but he kind of holds that. The hands themselves have all got indexed fingers, which not only makes him look like he can crush people's heads, but means he can hold his gun with his finger in the pistol grip. But yeah, overall a very nice figure, a good update. Is it the definitive version after so many? Tricky one to say. It is a good figure, but it's these hips for me. It's definitely the best one that they've done so far. Perhaps maybe not the definitive one. Well, when I say the best one so far, this guy still rocks and could kick his butt any day. But it's a very nice figure, and we'll try and look to do quite a few more reviews of these. The head's pretty good. As far as a lot of these Lukes go, you know, you've got kind of weirdo Luke that you then went to Rat Boy Luke, to future Jedi Luke, to Nicky Clark Luke, to one that does actually kind of look very good. It is, you know, credit where credit's due. It's a very good head sculpt. Yeah, no, it's a very, very nice figure, and a welcome addition, and hope that they carry on with a lot of this stuff for the vintage line. Anyway, that's quite amazing for a first video. I've managed to ramble on for 16 minutes, so I'll cut it short there, but it's available at All the Cool Stuff. If you look online at allthecoolstuff.co.uk, or you can pop in the shop, or give us a bell on 01425 650 696. If you're looking for any of the vintage collection, either this guy or any of the others, by all means drop us a line. Thanks very much, and see you on the next review. And 4 years later, we get this. Now that's progress for you. We're going to be reviewing this one very soon.